Hi, sorry. My name is Andy DeRizis. I'm the lead senior artist on World of Tanks, Xbox, and Xbox One, actually, as well. So about a year ago, somebody came to me and said, hey, we're going to be on the Xbox One. I'm like, cool, that's a good idea. We're going to rebuild every single tank in the game inside of a year. And I nearly freaked out. So that was actually pretty crazy. So this has been a crazy journey for everybody on the art team. And presentations, here we go. This is a little cool snippet video that I just showed at Gamescom in Germany, which is like the largest, I think it's one of the largest video game conventions for players, not just for publishers in the world. And this kind of takes us through a little bit of the stuff that we've done and changed and added to the Xbox One. And sorry for the music because this was for a convention, so there's some crazy German music in here too. So when we started this idea of what we were going to change for the Xbox One, we decided we were going to actually give the garage a little bit of an update. So one of my responsibilities was relighting the garage. So we actually brought the garage up to a little bit of a higher standard, specifically for the Xbox One. I basically relit throughout everything that they did on the PC, and then kind of redid everything for the Xbox One. And it had to be really, had to look really good because this is where you spend a lot of time, and where you spend a lot of time like fawning over your tanks, especially all the tanks that we just worked really hard on. So we had to make sure that the environment you were looking at these tanks in looked fantastic. And so this was some kind of a little beauty shots, but this is where you actually see in the game right now. We've actually added some crazy stuff that nobody else is doing in World of Tanks. We got depth of field and some really cool like blur up close on stuff and some crazy lens flares. We spent a lot of time working on how light sources affect your eyes and potentially the camera in the game and stuff like that. So, and we think it actually turned out pretty cool. So it looks pretty neat, and that's the cool little church trail here. So some R&D stuff that we're adding and we're continually developing for the game, which is always changing. So we're always adding stuff. This is the really coolest part of a game like this. Is some of the new stuff is interactive culturals, and you guys have already seen this if you're playing. That when you actually move the tank, it's actually mowing down the grass, and you actually see the density of the grass in these levels the tank's actually interacting with. This isn't one of the crazier ones. This has got some crazy stuff in it. You can actually see there's more grass blades, and in the next shot that you'll see, we went even crazier, and there's like 4 million hand-modeled blades of grass in this stuff, and that's just in the grass. Okay, so this is getting kind of epic up there with polygon counts in video games. I think at one point this was at 12 million, and we had to turn it down because the game wouldn't run. So you'd have really awesome looking grass, but your tanks would run like not too good. So that stuff's pretty cool. Some new stuff that we've also added is actually a root system for the trees. So when you actually knock over the trees, it actually looks real when you knock them over, and you're uprooting the trees. And we're going to be adding more cool stuff to this too, like decals when you uproot the tree and dirt and stuff. And that's the cool stuff that's different in a game like this, where we can continually add this stuff and kind of surprise you with cool stuff. So with all these HD tanks that we've created for the game, recreated, comes HD wiggly bits. We call them wiggly bits. So it's parts of the tanks that actually move. And we're going to be adding more and more of this stuff to the tanks. New system too, on the Xbox 360 we had a single track link system, which was cool, but this is actually more realistic because actually some tank tracks have two links, two completely different links. So we had to come up with a system to make it work with all these crazy angles that the tank might drive over stuff. So we think that the two-link system actually works even better. It's even crazier, so it's even more realistic than ever. It's a little crazy tracker. Oh yeah, here's all those 340 plus tanks modeled in HD. There they go. And they're done. All right. Yeah, that was like a whole year of my life. So okay, so here's the Churchill rolling over some grass in Pearl River. You can see the density and craziness of the grass that we have going on. It's working pretty cool. We're adding stuff, and we're going to be changing things and making it look even neater, which is really cool. And this is the level of like density of grass that you're seeing in the game right now. This was some early stuff, so some things might not be working too good. But all the stuff you're seeing, all the footage that I've captured for this presentation is actually right out of the game. All I did was turn the HUD off. So this is actually the MTLS. This is a super rare PC tank, and we have it on the Xbox One, which is really cool. And it's the only tank in the game that has 2 guns like this. So if you can get your hands on it, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun to play. So something else that's really, really cool and specific to the Xbox One currently is interactive light sources. So in our night maps, we actually have lights that you can knock over. I know it's nothing new to video games, but for World of Tanks, is actually something pretty new. So these light sources you can knock over, you can interact with, you can see your enemies at a distance better in some cases. You can hide yourself too by knocking the lights out too if you wanted to. I think it just makes the tanks look awesome. So, and it's something that the power of the Xbox One allows us to provide to the player. So when you roll down streets like this, and I think this is Himmelsdorf night, it looks pretty awesome. It looks pretty crazy. And so this tank you're seeing is one of our new HD assets. And I think I'll get to the tank stuff in a minute. Just some more cool night shots. And that's another thing too. So the fires and anything in the scene that looks like it gives off light actually does give off light and affects the tank. And it just makes these tanks look even cooler. Okay. So one of the crazy things that we actually had to do for creating these tanks was model super high-res versions of these tanks. It got really nuts. I think at one point the high-res version of the tank that we just used to bake textures off of, so this was throwaway work, was like 19 million polygons per tank, which is probably higher than what you'd use in a movie prop, CG movie prop. So we were using that kind of stuff to actually bake down textures with some kind of little insane to explain, but with some software that we actually get all these crazy high-res textures that you see. So these are some of the unique to Xbox One HD tanks that you can see in the game right now. And these are some kind of beauty shots of them. I think at one point we had 120 artists working on making HD tanks. And when I say HD tanks, I'm talking about like the tanks on the Xbox 360 were about 1K, which is about 1,000 pixels wide sheets. On the Xbox One, they're about 4K, so that's about 4,000 pixels wide. And not to mention that every single piece of the tank now is separate. So the tracks are separate. That has its own 4K texture. The hull has its own 4K texture. The barrels, the turrets, everything has been separated out so that we can actually have a little bit more control over how crazy the textures can be. And you get more resolution when you do that. So this tank actually looks really sick. This is one of my favorite looking tanks in Sand River, and the thing almost looks real, and literally this is right out of the game. I turned the HUD off. I'm flying a camera around this tank. It's pretty neat. And I think this was one of our early tanks that we got. We started getting this stuff in, boy, I think it was a couple months after we started production, and I was kind of getting blown away by how this stuff looked. Hopefully it looks this good up on that screen. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the IS-6. And if you guys already know any issues with the IS-6, you can come talk to me afterwards. I'm already aware that there's an issue with the IS-6. So, I mean, that's the cool thing about we call them HD versions of these tanks. You can put your nose like right up on the tank and it holds up. And one of my mandates for making these tanks look more realistic was I didn't want to see polygons anymore. It's one of my pet peeves when we go through all the trouble and months of making this cool stuff for you guys and for the game. When you get really close to something, you start seeing faceting around curved edges and things like that, and it drives me crazy. So I was constantly telling the artist, no facets. I don't want to see any of that stuff. We're running all these crazy textures. We got the memory on the Xbox One. Let's spend the money and make everything look awesome. So when you put the camera this close, you can't see anything. You can't see any, like, hey, this is digital or CG. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't break the simulation that you guys have when you're playing the game. So this is Sand River Night, and I don't know if you guys haven't played Sand River on the Xbox One, you're missing out, because it actually it's the coolest version of Sand River Night. So again, this is another new HD asset. And these games, and all these tanks, right now they're playable on the Xbox One. And that's the beauty part of the Xbox One. If you had a favorite tank that you were playing on the PC that wasn't HD yet, you go play it on the Xbox One. It's all HD, all of them. So this is the level of density that we're talking about as far as grass and crazy stuff that we're doing in the environments. I think right now we're hand placing all the grass in all the levels. So it's all hand painted in every single level. There are some other games that do it procedurally. I think right now our artists do that by hand, which is pretty crazy. So, and it looks pretty cool. Oh yeah, so this is actually something cool that's going to be coming soon to the Xbox One. We're working on mud accumulation and water accumulation on the tanks. So when you drive, the tank's going to get muddy. It's going to get mud on the sides and stuff like that. And here's some more environment update stuff. We added butterflies. You can see the butterflies right there. And when I say HD, I mean you can get right on top of the wood and stuff, just like any other cool game. And we're kind of brought up to the new level of what everybody else is doing in the video game world, and we've gone beyond it in some cases. In many cases on the tanks, I don't think there's any crazier vehicles moving around in games right now. There's no butterflies in this shot, but they're in here. If you look close. So one of the crazy things about the tanks is some of the tanks are actually around 41,000 polygons, and the tracks themselves can be another whole tank's worth of polygons themselves. So when you see 30 tanks rolling around in a game, you could be seeing a couple million polygons on the screen, plus the environment, plus everything going on with effects and stuff like that. So on the Xbox One allows us to do some pretty amazing things for environments and vehicles than we've ever been able to do before. All right, cool. So this is some of my favorite stuff, and I think the artists have spent, the environment artists, they've been killing themselves working on these war variants and updating them for the Xbox One and making them cooler than ever. And with all our cool new interactive light sources and things like that, like from the fire affecting the tank, they've been able to pull off some pretty amazing destruction setups in some of the levels. And this is just some beauty shots of some of that stuff. I think this is N-Score. And they've spent probably a half a year messing around with these levels, destroying them, wrecking them, so that when you're driving down the street in these war-torn levels, it actually feels that way and looks that way, and it looks pretty crazy. So another cool thing about the levels, specifically, was that we go through all the trouble of creating all these really, really nice levels, and then they tell these guys to destroy them, and I think they have more fun destroying them than creating them in the first place. Oh yeah, so that's actually some new stuff that you see here on the ground, if you can really make it out. No more will you be driving down barren streets in these levels. The environment artists have spent a ton of time hand painting rocks and stuff like that all throughout the streets. So in these destroyed versions of these levels, you're actually driving over rubble and crazy stuff like that. because it actually gets a little boring when you're driving down a really pristine, pretty street. So we tried to dirty everything up. And yes, that's a crashed plane, I think, in there. Yep. This was, I think, a section of Ensk War that just turned out really awesome. It's a little bright in here to see, but this is all the cool stuff that you guys can go see right now and play on the Xbox One. And I hope that you do, because we had a blast making it. And that's it. That's it. Sorry. Any question? Any questions? Yeah. Well, time-wise for, I'm sorry, so his question was, what's the comparison on like Xbox One and a 360 tank, basically? Time-wise to create it. On the Xbox One, I'm sorry, on the 360, I think to create the tank, it took about a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, depending if we were creating it. It depends on which office was creating it, but given that doesn't include like historical vetting that the tank has to go through. On the Xbox One, the tanks could potentially take 5 weeks to 2 months. So in some cases, 2 months to 5 weeks. So the level of work though that was involved in creating the HD assets is like, it's twice the amount of work, basically. If not, in some cases, can be even more than that. The back and forth, like literally when I was checking tanks, after they'd go through the historical checking on the tank creation side, they'd come to me. I'd look at the tank like 6 times throughout its creation process. So 6 tanks times 342 tanks, do the math. So it was a lot of checking and making sure that all this stuff looked really, really good. And there were times when we were going back and forth and having him change stuff because some artist just got it through his head that he could, doesn't have to weld a plate to something where it didn't look correct. So we were getting really crazy with them and making sure this stuff looked accurate and realistic. In the back. The question was, what 3D software do we use to create this stuff? We use Maya and 3D Studio Max. Right now in Chicago, we're 3D Studio Max heavy. We tend not to use Maya. So, in the back there in red. So his question was, are these cool updates going to affect frame rate? No, they're not allowed to. That's the biggest thing with all the work that we do, specifically in the environments and tank side, is none of this stuff can affect frame rate. Frame rate, we tend to let everybody else destroy frame rate and get yelled at for it. We get yelled at when we do that. So, and I hate seeing low frame rate gameplay. It drives me crazy. I know it drives a lot of players crazy, especially when you're in the heat of battle. If something starts chugging, now if it's network lag and you have a bad internet connection, that's your problem. But if it's like frame rate because the machine can't do it, it's our fault. So that's the thing, is we try never to allow that to happen. Guy in the back, wait. That's a good question. So are going to be destructible buildings? There's some destructible buildings. As far as like, are you talking about like hyperphysics types destructible buildings? Not right now. I know that there's some planning and playing around with that stuff inside wargaming as a whole, but I can't promise anything like that right now. Sorry, right there. So the question is, on the Xbox One, since there's so much cool stuff in Fog of War and yeah, sure. Is it fair gameplay-wise with the 360 players if they're playing against each other? I don't know if there's been any discussion about that kind of stuff. There has. Look at all these nodding heads, yeah. So I make pretty stuff. I don't usually like to deal with that stuff. But yeah. But I can tell you this. None of the stuff that we do pretty-wise is supposed to affect gameplay. We really limit the amount of fog that we have in the levels, so it doesn't encroach on your gameplay experience, especially so it doesn't make it fair for the guys on the 360. They have a better, sight lines and stuff like that. None of that stuff. I mean, we had to be as crazy enough to make sure that every single tree is in the exact same spot, that is the exact same shape in in both sets of the worlds, and that in itself was a nightmare. So that was just a huge undertaking. So, yeah, in the orange. We have a drink. It's been a crazy year actually. We have a party, we do, but we also are kind of holding our breaths and watching what you guys are doing with the game. It's pretty crazy watching the response of everybody looking at all our work, and saying a lot of great stuff in the press, which is really, really cool. But we're really more interested in what the players are thinking about the game and if you guys like it or not. So we've been really just watching the boards and watching you guys play online. Sorry, we are watching you. But yeah, we love, actually, I love getting on games and listening to people talk about stuff. It's like, I don't like the way this tank looks. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. You don't like the way the tank looks. It's fine. It only took like a month of my life. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Sorry. In the red, right there. Yeah, you. Yeah. Can the artist see that? Oh, can the arty see that? So that's something else I had to mention. So her question was, the Churchill rolling by is kicking up dust. Can arty see that from the air? I don't think they can see the dust, but there is some new stuff that they've put into the levels, like birds flying out of bushes and things like that, and arty can definitely see that. So if you scare some birds out of a bush, you might get shot. So heads up, watch out for those bushes. Yes, right here. My favorite tank model? Whoa, that's a good question. I'm a big fan of the Super Pershing, but the Matilda, when I saw it come across my desk after it was modeled, I saw the Ultra HD version of it, and then I saw the baked down version of it for the game, and it looked really sick. I mean, you can get your nose right up on this stuff, and I had to get a new graphics card put into my computer just so I can look at the ultra high res stuff and then load all the textures and stuff quick enough so that I could look at the stuff on a daily basis. So I'd say probably the Matilda. I mean, there are some tanks in the game. If you guys haven't noticed, there's like sand casting letters on the sides of these tanks. I mean, some of the stuff is legit, historically, accurate lettering and serial numbers and stuff like that. They're beautiful. It's really amazing. I never thought I'd say tanks are beautiful. They're beautiful. I mean, the amount of work that go into them. Yeah, right there. Is that a question for the PC team? Because I know, no, it's a valid question. So his question was does player usage of a tank possibly denote whether it needs to be made HD or not? I can't answer that for the PC side. I can just tell you that my boss said straight up, every single tank has to be HD, no matter what, on the Xbox Ones. For the console, yeah. So every single tank in the game is HD, and we don't roll a tank out that's not HD on the Xbox One. And what's really funny is now that we roll out any new tanks, it's actually two tanks. It's a tank on the Xbox 360 and an Xbox One, so it's double. So that's pretty cool. So you guys, and what's really cool is something that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, that when we roll out new tanks, we're not going back to the old way of making tanks for the 360. We're actually taking the HD tank from the Xbox One that's being created, baking it down for the 360. So the tank actually just looks better normal maps, better everything on the tank. So it's pretty cool. All the way in the back. That's been like one of my wishes like forever, yeah. And I do it all the time too, waiting to see if one of my coworkers have actually put some kind of collision in for them. But yeah, no, I don't think there's any plans for that. We talk about it, and I think there's some levels that actually have some low flying dogfights that are going on, and there might be more of that stuff coming into the levels. So while you're playing and being shot or destroyed, you might see a plane fly right over your head, but really close. But yeah, no, as far as I know, no, sorry. Oh, so you're talking about like the ambient artillery barrages? So his question was the artillery barrages that have been introduced in the game, is there a possibility of actually doing damage to the tanks? That I can't speak to. That's a design thing. That's their choice. And I don't think that, personally as a player, I don't know if that would be fair or not. If you're just sitting there and, hey, there's artillery, but nobody's actually firing into the game. It's just ambient and you're getting, I don't know. That could be cool. It's cool. We kick around stuff like this all the time at work. Like, what would happen if we blew the turret off, stuff like that, and we're doing that now. It's crazy stuff like that. So we were actually just recently looking at source video for what happens when the magazine rack of a tank actually gets hit and it turns into a Roman candle. It's actually pretty frightening. So we're actually talking about implementing that. So when you get ammo racked, you could see a Roman candle come out of the top of your turret hatch and blow smoke out of the gun, and you know everybody's inside is fried. So yeah, it's pretty terrifying stuff, actually. Oh, wait, where? Oh, over there. Yeah, sorry. This is actually a lot of work that goes into the fire. So everything is actually simulated. So they do 3D simulation or fluid sim stuff. One of our VFX guys, Dustin, he's got 2 computers. He's got one that's always doing a fluid sim of fire or smoke or whatever it is, and then another computer he's actually working on. So everything you see in the game, all the effects, they're going to be continually. There's still some stuff that's legacy in there that's going to be updated. So hopefully you can't see it, but. Going forward, we're actually going to be replacing stuff. He's working on it right now. In fact, that was something we were talking about on Friday, and we were even talking about throwing tank parts out when you get shot, you know, like just bits of tank junk coming off, and we've got some crazy ideas for the tracks and things like that too. So hopefully look forward for that stuff in the future, seeing that stuff. All the way in the back, and wait. Yeah, it actually should leak. It should leak some stuff and potentially catch on fire. We're talking about potentially doing some of that stuff. It becomes a little difficult just because the amount of things that the tanks can actually do. If you think about it, there's 340 plus characters for this game because the tanks are the characters. They're just as complicated as any other character in any other game. I know because it's part of my gig, but and all the people that work on them under me, you know, on a daily basis, the tanks keep getting more and more complicated. So I don't want to say no to that, but I think that would be probably further down the road, just from the amount of sheer complexity of the tanks. Sorry, and if you guys didn't hear what his question was the would it leak oil if you got shot, and would it do damage and maybe catch on fire and that kind of stuff. So yeah, there. Oh, right here. To design for 2 consoles? Well, not design-wise, but I can talk about the art stuff. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We had to make sure that all the collision for both sets of tanks was absolutely identical, so that when one guy is shooting at a turret on the 360, the same collision mesh is actually sitting inside this new HD tank. So we didn't want to nerf anybody's console, you know, or anybody's tanks. So we did a lot of work of massaging the tanks to make sure that they were fitting inside this collision mesh, because the collision while you're playing the game is everything. If you're shooting a viewfinder, there's a viewfinder collision mesh there that has information specific to penetration. So if that wasn't there in the right place on both tanks, it would look weird and be wrong, and you'd shoot someplace and you'd get gypped for your damage. So we did a lot of work. It was I think at the end of our production, we were kind of scrambling to fix a bunch of tanks that needed some fixing too, actually. So it all turned out okay now because everybody's playing, and it works. But yeah, it's been really crazy. Right here. Oh, that's okay. So his question was, when can you potentially see your actual crew getting out of the tank? Right now, I can't speak to the fact that you'll see humans in our game. That it could potentially change the rating of the game too. So, and the tanks are kind of like your character. So I can't say whether you'll see them in the future or not, but I've never heard anything about that. So, yeah, right here. Oh yeah. So his question was the map rotation's kind of limited on the consoles right now. Are we working on anything to get all of the maps on there? And absolutely. Right now there's I think another whole set of maps. How many is it? 18 more, or anybody know? Is 18 more? So 18 more maps coming that'll allow you to even have more fun in different places in World of Tanks. So. Yeah. When? Oh, you want the exact date? I'm not going to give you that. I have no. I'm not authorized to give you that. Yeah. I'm sure it's actually pretty soon. Actually, soon could be revs. So a month or 2, 3, 5. I'm not sure. I can't. Say again. Yeah, it's funny. It's crazy. Yeah, it's like we got a year for the thing. They got a year for the maps. So they kind of got gypped big time because the maps are a lot bigger than the tank. But the tanks, it's crazy. There's this weird chicken and the egg thing where the tanks actually got a lot of detail, and so do the levels. So it's like this weird like, hey, it takes you that long for the tanks? No, it's actually weird. Like the tanks and the levels were about the same amount of time to make them, which is really nuts. It's pretty nuts. Right there. Yeah. Ah, okay. Be really good. I'm sorry. So I'm kidding. That's a stupid question. No, it's true. So her question was, what do you need to do this kind of stuff as far as a new artist to come work for Wargaming? I would say you have to be a really, really good 3D technical person. So we're talking about not just creating three-dimensional stuff and making pretty stuff, but also understanding the tech a little bit more. Video games in general, too. A lot of people come to us and say, hey, I want a job in video games, and they know a lot about 3D, but they've never worked on a game before, or they don't know anything about games, so they just have a bunch of art, nothing in a game level that's running. And with a lot of the new packages out there for creation of video games, you can get the engines for free to play with at home. So a lot of times we want to see something that somebody's created a game level if they can, or at least have their asset moving around in UDK, which is Unreal for a lot of you guys, in a game engine and created for a game engine specifically, because there's a lot of like pitfalls for creating art for video games that most people that just get into 3D don't realize. There's texture memory considerations, polygon considerations, things like that. So I would say just be really technical and actually have a really, really good portfolio and always be adding to your portfolio. That's the biggest thing. Sure, yeah, you can get a college degree in game art. Yep. We more look, I think, at the level of art and competence more than anything. So to me, I having a degree is actually a plus. Absolutely, you finish something. That's a big part of it. So, but when we look at you, we look at either your work experience, if you're already working, or how crazy of a 3D nut you are. If you're one of us, then we're gonna recognize you. So that's usually how it goes. We'll smell you. Yeah, all the way out there in red. So you're talking about surface deformation, yeah. Okay, so the question was, if artillery rounds hit near you, will it be able to actually deform the ground near you? Right now, there's no playing around with the terrain in World of Tanks, specifically because it's kind of hard-coded to the servers. So the servers actually, that collision is running on, it's doing all the collision work for your client, basically at home on the server. So to make that happen, we'd have to change the collision on the server. And right now, we're not doing anything like that. And we talk about it. Don't worry. Trust me. We talk about all this stuff. It's like, wouldn't it be cool to be able to blow a mountain away? Yeah, that would be awesome. It would be so awesome. But right now, there's no plans for that stuff. Yeah. Right here. So we talk about it every once in a while. We talk about that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So his question was, can you paint your tank basically yourself? Customize it, or sure. I'm not going to say no. With the Xbox One, there's a lot more memory for stuff to do like that. But right now, I don't think there's the plans. I think we're still talking about it though. Definitely. All the way in the back. So the question was, we've seen World of Tanks come to the Xbox and Xbox One. Will we see more stuff coming to the consoles? I can't say yes or no. I can tell you we've been really focused on the Xbox One specifically for the past year, but it'd be cool. It'd be really cool. Are you talking about just for asset creation side of it, like speed, or? So, did you guys catch all that? All right, I'm not going to repeat it because it was really long. But so the short answer is, on the PC, they're also always playing to the lowest common denominator as far as hardware goes. So they've always got to keep the guy in mind who has a 10-year-old laptop sitting in his bathroom in Russia somewhere playing World of Tanks, and they got to make sure it runs. So that's the problem. So they have much bigger technical hurdles than we do. We know what our final hardware profile is going to be. Just like when you buy a game, it says, "Hey, you should play this game on this killer NVIDIA card, and if you don't have it, you might be screwed as far as like how it's going to play. Well, we know what the card is. It's the Xbox One. We knew that going in, and we know how to like profile all the graphics specifically for that platform. So you guys kind of get a bonus if you play on the Xbox One in some cases. Don't get me wrong. The stuff that they are doing on the PC, there's some cool stuff that they're doing, and we're always trading tech, actually. So some of the stuff we come up with, they take, and some of the stuff they come up with continually, we take. Actually, most of the stuff we take from them, yeah. I'm not going to answer that. So Japanese heavy tanks, are they coming? I'm not going to answer that. Eventually, yeah. I can tell you that I have a smile because some stuff came across my desk. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, right here. There's a lot. There's a lot I'm not supposed to say. Actually, I'm probably saying too much right now. I'm surprised no one's come up to me and like hit me yet. So, yeah, keep firing away. You might get the answer you want. We should all be drinking, actually. Yeah. Oh, right there in the back. Oh, okay. So I think I was running on like a 2-year-old graphics card from NVIDIA. It was really old, and I think the nicest one they would get me at the time was a 970. I think it was a GTX. So it's good enough for what it was. I'm just using it for 3D Studio Max and our World Creators software too. So the biggest problem was load times for textures. So when you're loading potentially 32 gigs of textures for a tank, all at once, and you want to see it like right now, you need a good card and an SSD hard drive. It just has to happen. So, yeah. Any more questions? Oh, all the way back. Oh, wow. Well, right now, I think our development hardware is the new spec is an SSD hard drive. I think I'm running 32 gigs of RAM or something like that. And that NVIDIA card, I think I have right now, 4 monitors. I don't know. I have to give one back. I took too many monitors. But, and that's pretty much the standard for artists. So each artist gets about two giant monitors and a TV and a dev kit, which is a console. And if you work on both consoles, you get 2 dev kits. So we've actually had power problems at our office from everybody running so many things. They spent a lot of money. We burned out the return line, I think it was. We melted it and fried like tons of boxes. We fried like 13 dev kits for $10,000 a pop. It's crazy. So yeah, we've been working so hard and so fast that we're breaking stuff. Yeah. Oh, right here. So his question was, are there going to be more reskin tanks coming? Yeah, actually, they're really, really cool. I think there's going to be more. I think there'll be more probably for each specific nation when we get like crazy paint jobs like that. Maybe a few for special holidays or something like that. But I'm usually at the like firing line of those tanks. So when we did, I think, the first Freedom tank, I did the paint job for that tank, and my boss was like, make it look like a motorcycle tank. I'm like, okay. So I went back and ripped up the back of the tank and ripped up the American flag. I didn't want to rip up the flag, but he's like, yeah, that's good. I'm like, okay. So now we're doing more of those. So we actually just recently tried to do something for Germany, and we showed it to some of our German compatriots in wargaming, and they were like, that's terrible. Do not release this. And I'm like, okay. So we got to go back to make sure we vet all this stuff. We can do the American side of it pretty easy. Looks cool. It's the American flag, badass. Whatever. But yeah, we need to be a little more culturally sensitive when we do China and when we do Germany, and so yeah, definitely look forward to that stuff. It's going to be cool. There's going to be more stuff. I can't tell you because there's like 3 of them I actually have to concept up soon actually for that stuff. But yeah, right here. We have not as yet. And will we take more reskin tanks from other platforms like Blitz or stuff like that? I don't know. I kind of don't want to. I like our stuff. We're coming up with our own stuff for our own game because the Xbox One and the 360 are kind of our, it's World of Tanks for us. So it's pretty cool. So we're trying to keep it unique, I think. Right here. Okay. So first question was, do we actually go to war sites and look at real tanks? And the second question is, where are the artists located? So, yeah, absolutely. We go and look at real tanks. I was actually on that drive a tank trip that he was at, and the Sherman almost ran me over while I was sitting in the minivan, which is pretty awesome, actually. And my boss is like, well, why didn't you let him hit the minivan? It would have been a better story. And I'm like, yeah, but I was like sitting right in the front seat. So on that trip, I was taking tons of photo reference. So I was shooting the sides of the tanks, how much the mud accumulating, getting ready for our work, adding mud to the tanks and what it looked like, and when I brought back the pictures from that, our tech artist who was going to actually implement the adding mud to the sides of the tank as you drive through the levels was like, wow, I didn't think it looked like that when it got on the tracks. I'm like, yeah, it's a tank, it gets mud, but it's like, but then we noticed some weird things, like the mud doesn't go up past certain parts of the tank, and there was some stuff that you can guess at, but until you see this stuff in real life and play with tanks in reality, it's different. We all came back with bruises from the tanks, by the way, because they don't call them meat grinders for nothing. We all got hurt. I had bruise in the middle of my back for a couple weeks, and luckily nobody fell off the tank. And I asked, actually, can I sit here? As I got up on the tank, and he's like, don't sit there. I'm like, well, why? He's like, it's the front of the fender. If you sit there and fall forward, you're dead instantly. I can't do anything about it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move up here. Sorry. Yeah, so sorry, I'm out of time. Can I answer her last question? All right, so the last part of your question was, where are the artists located? There's a core artist, group of artists in Chicago. There's about, how many are we? I don't know, about probably 20-ish, roughly. And then to have a bigger fleet of artists making these tanks was a kind of a worldwide effort across wargaming. So they weren't just made in Chicago, and they weren't just made in Kiev studio. They were made all over the world, which was really crazy. So in order to get it all done in time for our release. So, thanks a lot.